We're going to go ahead and get this kicked off. Today, we're going to be doing a webinar on our planning and budgeting cloud services tool. My name is Kacey Wolff. I am an account manager here in Houston, Texas, for Inoapps in our Houston office. I'm going to briefly give you an overview of who Inoapps is as a company, and then I'm going to transition to our key speaker today at Jeavons. So Inoapps is a global IT consultancy and an Oracle Platinum partner. So we provide consulting and implementation services for the Oracle applications. For the last 2 years, in 2015 and 2016, we have been the Oracle Specialized Partner of the Year in the UK, where our global headquarters is. As I mentioned before, our US headquarters is here in Houston, Texas, and we have offices across North America, Asia, and Europe. I think another thing that we want to point out and is important is that we are an early adopter of the Oracle applications. So as a company, we run our business on Oracle's ERP, HCM, EPM, and CRM cloud applications. And now I'm going to transition over to our speaker today. So Ed Jeavons is the Vice President of our global EPM and BI practice. He has 10 years of experience implementing Hyperion and BI applications. He's worked with several large global clients and led those implementations. He also has experience with multiple industries. So he has worked as an independent partner as well as a global SI in industries such as financial services, defense, construction, and IT. So Ed is coming to us today, and he is local. He is located in our London global headquarters.
Hi everyone, hello, and thanks Kacey for the intro. So I'm just going to change the presenter over to myself now, so please do bear with me. Okay, so just a very quick introduction to the Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service tool. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Oracle's Planning and Budgeting solution here, what we're looking at is the cloud version of Oracle's legacy Hyperion tool. So Hyperion is a tool that you may be more familiar with, coming from quite a long background of about 15 years of development there through the tool called Hyperion Planning. So Oracle have re-engineered that very same tool and dropped that onto the cloud. And we'll have a look at some of the benefits of that in just a second. But first, I just wanted to position why would anyone need a planning and budgeting tool. Spreadsheets have always been a great user productivity tool, and we can use that to record and hold budgets. So why would there ever be a need for a specific tool to handle that? Well, a lot of organizations find themselves in the position on the left here, where you've got different groups of users. In this case, we've only shown two, those being senior management and FP&A. But you might have other conflicting departments there. You might have sales, operations, HR, etc. And they're all maintaining different versions of different plans. So you might have treasury planning, you might have people doing sales planning, your HR department might be planning for workforce new hires and looking at the impact of that on their income statement, etc. And all of these different plans are all held separately. None of the metadata is necessarily linked, so that is to say, when you update a field in one, you need to go and update it in several others. And over time, these things tend to grow and become unwieldy. The formulas get longer, the spreadsheets get bigger, and doing things like holding versions, etc., becomes problematic. So we see a number of different issues arise. Firstly, the scale of what you end up having to collate at the end of a budgetary period. You tend to have a plethora of spreadsheets there, and it can be quite difficult to bring those together and roll those up. The amount of time it takes to do that as well, and the amount of time it takes to go back and maybe amend formulas that have gone awry, or to go back and make changes at a very granular level, can be very time-consuming. We've seen some case studies where we've got some organizations that are taking 120 days to finalize a budget in some cases, which is a crazy amount of time to be spending just sifting through spreadsheets. There's an inherent lack of quality within a spreadsheet, given that there's no restrictions around what you can put in and the formulas that you can create, and quite often mistakes go unnoticed. So I think we've seen quite a number of different mistakes in the news in the last sort of 5 or so years around where spreadsheets have caused some pretty big rounding issues, for example, at certain investment banks that have ended up costing organizations hundreds of millions of dollars just because of a rounding error in a spreadsheet somewhere upstream. And it's that sort of stuff that we really want to move away from. We want to move to a system where all of our data is held and controlled in exactly the same way. So we only need to apply standards once, and we only need to apply security once. And if we want to add a new cost center or add a new department, we only need to do that once. And that's really at the core of what it is we're going to be showing today in the planning and budgeting cloud solution. The other two areas at the bottom there with respect to flexibility and hidden costs. So the flexibility comes from what we would call the dimensional perspective of a spreadsheet. They're inherently two-dimensional with respect to rows and columns. If we want to hold many versions, we might start moving out to the tabs. If we wanted to hold many years worth of data, then we might have to start looking at separate worksheets, and that's just 4 dimensions. Within the planning and budgeting cloud solution, without going into an extreme level of technical detail, we hold data in a very different sort of database. It's what's known as a multi-dimensional database. It's very good at holding different slices of data which for analytical purposes can be isolated and looked upon by any number of different metrics at a later stage. And hopefully that will come out as we go through the demonstration here today. Finally, there are always inherent costs in running spreadsheets. It may well, on the face of it, seem that, well, you know, we pay for Excel anyway, so where's the cost element to that? But I think all of the above can lead to time, mistakes, and you know, sometimes find yourself in regulatory issues with respect to audit, etc., that can be quite costly. So I think to kind of paraphrase, it might be a little bit more expensive than you might think to continue using spreadsheets. So rather than using spreadsheets, we're proposing that maybe people might want to take a look at the Planning and Budgeting Cloud service. So Oracle released Hyperion Planning onto the cloud back in February of 2014. So Hyperion as a solution set has been around for about 15 years, but we first took this to the cloud a couple of years ago. And since then, there's been over 1,000 subscriptions and 53,000 end users now globally. So this is Oracle's fastest growing cloud platform. And we've got clients across literally every industry, as you can see in the bottom left there. The nice thing about Oracle's cloud offering is that you pay one fee per user per month, and that's it. There's no annual recharges, there's no maintenance and support on top of that. Everything's included. So it's a very transparent way of procuring software, and you can do that on a 12 or a 36-month basis or whatever you happen to negotiate. Very flexible in that respect. So really kind of changed the way that people are procuring these solutions, and we're seeing a lot more organizations procure planning and budgeting solutions at a departmental level rather than at a group finance level, which was perhaps the traditional means of doing so. So with that being said, let's take a look at some of the software itself. And we're going to hop right into a demo that I'm running right here. Because this is a cloud delivered solution, I don't need to install anything on my desktop or have anything running on my computer. All I'm doing here is I've opened the browser and I've navigated to my demo URL here. And from here, as an end user, I can just launch the application. Now I've logged in as an administrator today, so you're going to see quite a few options along here around managing bits and pieces and configuring security that we're not going to take a look at. But suffice to say, the experience would look almost identical to an end user. They would have a couple less options there. So the first thing I'm taken to, and that I can see taking up the majority of my screen here and also highlighted on the left, is this concept of task lists. So within Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service, we can break the budgetary or the planning process down into its constituent tasks, and then we can create hierarchy around those, as you can see here, with respect to this folder structure. So we can have different groupings of tasks. So here's all my tasks that make up my operating forecast, for example. And then I can have a number of different steps that I, as a planner, need to go through in order to work my way down and have that completed. I can apply a start date and an end date to any of those tasks if I so choose, and from that I can then review the status up at the top here in the pie chart to see which tasks are completed and which are still outstanding. So just a nice way to manage the completion of any tasks and get an overall picture of where we are in a budgetary process. Now this might be more useful to organizations where there's a lot of individuals involved in the planning process and there's a lot of constituent steps. For more simple organizations, you might not need this sort of functionality, but it's just a nice way of gathering all your tasks together in here. So we can see some examples of the tasks that we're looking at here. So in my operating forecast, we're going to be taking a look at forecasting for around my products and around my services. We're going to be inputting drivers. We're going to do some headcount and salary planning, etc., etc. So each of those constituent tasks we can break down. If we have a rolling forecast process, then we could schedule dates to coincide in exactly the same time every month. So we could just have it such that on the 4th day of every month, all my drivers needed to be entered. On the 6th day, I needed to get my headcount and forecast plan in, etc. Let's actually jump in and take a look at what does the actual input and report screens look like within the solution then. So I'm going to jump straight in here and take a look at forecasting around products. So for the purposes of this demonstration today, we've got a few different things that we'll show, but effectively it's organizations selling widgets, and I'll talk to some of the different use cases that we've seen toward the end. But if you could just kind of bear with us with respect to the fact that this is an organization that's selling products, and I understand that not every organization is going to be doing that, but hopefully the kind of functionality speaks for itself on this. So I've got what's called a composite form here. That is to say, I'm looking at two different grids at the same time. In my top grid here, I've got some products down in the rows, and I've got some periods and some years along here in the columns. And there's some expansion that I'm able to do here just by drilling on the constituent quarters there, and that there makes up, and I can see and drill into the months that sit beneath that. At the very top of the form, I can see that at the moment I'm looking at, within this grid at the top, I'm looking at units. I can choose from the drop down to look at my average selling price and my gross margin percentage as well. So effectively what I'm able to do is put in the number of units I think I'm going to sell of a given product, like product X. Then I could go and input my average selling price here for product X, and then I could put my margin percentage. The bottom form down here, similarly, I can choose from which product I want to take a look at. In this case, I'm looking at the grouping of all the products called computer equipment, and I'm able to see the result of that calculation effectively. So once we've input units, average selling price, and gross margin, it goes away and it calculates a revenue and therefore a gross profit. So a little P&L based on products here. If I wanted to amend some of the numbers, I can just jump into a cell and start typing. As soon as I enter that number by hitting return there, you'll see that the cell's gone yellow, and that's just to let me know that I've made a change in the database that I need to save back to that central repository. Now in this case, I'm just going to hit refresh. I'm not going to save that data, and it gives me a warning if I've accidentally clicked away from a page to say if you change that data, it's going to be it needs to be saved, or you need to choose to reject it. In this case, I'll reject it. Let's go change some actual units in here and have a look at how the system works with respect to inputting data. So I'm going to input 300 units there for July. You might notice that immediately Q3 has actually updated itself. So dynamically, as I'm typing numbers in here in the constituent months, the total's actually going away and updating each and every time. To save those back, I just click on the save icon up at the top here, and then I'm going to get a couple of messages come up. So the first one letting me know that data's been saved, which is fine. The second one, however, is telling me that a rule has been run successfully. So in the background, unbeknown to the user, if you like, there is a process and a set of calculations that is running every time I save data in. So I don't need to worry about making sure my formulas are adding up or copying those down. Every time I save on this form, it's going to add up all the numbers, it's going to take my new units, times them by my selling price, and calculate my gross margin for each of my products. So just an example of how we can centrally hold a set of calculations that we can apply the same for every single user through a very nice and restricted, yet still very flexible user interface. So one of the other things I'll quickly show is that the system's quite good at accounting for time. So if I wanted to, I can actually enter my forecast at a quarterly level or indeed a year total level, and then I can break back those numbers. And you'll see that the numbers will proportionally break back across the constituent months. So quite nice if you want to do some top-down planning as well as bottom-up planning from a period perspective. We have that covered as well. So that was a very simple example of how we can calculate out a mini P&L, if you like, or an income statement there based on a product and some prices. We could also do something on a more driver-based plan. So in this case, for each of the products that I sell, we're going to take a percentage of the net revenue, and then we're going to calculate out some services. So for every one of the products I sell, I'm going to get some support revenue from maintenance. I'm going to get some consulting revenue. I'm going to get some training revenue, etc. And I can tweak the percentages that I've got in here, and I can drop that down to 15%, say, if I wanted to. And again, all I'm doing is amending a driver. I don't need to worry about my formula, because every time I click save, I can specify which rules have been run successfully, and that's all been set up in advance. So centrally controlled. Effectively, I couldn't break this if I wanted to. And what that's gone and done is it's then gone and calculated out my forecast and what the revenue is going to be therein going forward from a services perspective. So a little bit of a different way of looking at things in that respect. I'm going to mark this task off as complete, something I didn't do on the previous one, and you'll see I get a little tick in the list of tasks there. That will be so that when I go back to that, that screen that we started on, I'm going to be able to see the fact that I've completed some of my tasks as part of my monthly process. We'll take a quick look at some of the expense drivers that we actually hold within the system. So I might want to allocate expenses out based on a number of different metrics. So in this case, I've got on a per department level, I can put how many trips are people likely to do, what's the square footage of an office, what is the average salary, what's the head count, etc., etc. And I can hold all of this data within the system here. And these are the sort of drivers that I would be updating month for month if I wanted to. So I see that Sales Southeast hasn't got any square footage in there for the office yet, so I'm just going to put that in by just typing in there, and I'm going to save that away. Now, as well as being able to just type numbers into the cells, what I can do as well is I can actually add commentary. So if I needed to add a comment for another user to be able to see against international sales in July there, I could just right-click and then come down to the comments section. And from within the comments section, I can actually add a piece of narrative in there. So I could just add some commentary in there and add that away. And I could make that all pretty and HTML text if I wanted to. But that's going to be recorded in the system against my username and the time at which I put that in. Once I click close on that, you'll notice the cell has got a little indicator in the top right corner there to show that we've got some comments available to me. So as well as being able to plan against just some flat expense drivers, we could take a look at actually planning against some operating expenses and see those drivers in action here. So here I've got a list of shared service expenses, if you like, that I can now apportion out to my division. In this case, I'm looking at the Sales East division, and I can apportion those out based on a nice, easy-to-use list of saying, you know, do I want to do my cleaning and maintenance based on square footage, or do I want to base it on the number of FTE hours, etc., etc. So for things like telephone expenses, I probably want to do that on FTE hours, but maybe for this one here, I could change that and change telephone expenses to sales calls. So what this form's doing is allowing me as an end user to see a nice user-friendly list of things that I can apportion by. In this case, I choose sales calls, and then I go away and I can save that data. So that's going to go away and recalculate out any of the charges that I have based on the data that I input in that driver screen that we just saw prior. And the result of that, if I go to the actual forecast, will be that that number will have been planned out now based on the data I chose. So again, we're able to hide logic to the end user if we so choose, and remove the ability for them to make mistakes, and instead just leave them in a place where they are thinking more about the actual forecast itself rather than whether or not they've got their formula right. Let's take a quick look at what an income statement might look like out of this. So again, all those changes I've been making around the revenue and the costs are going to be feeding down into the constituent areas here around revenue, and then my total cost of sales and service is shown in there, and then moving down to the expenses that we just tweaked here around the OPEX. And I can drill all the way down into this hierarchy as much as I needed to. So this would be an example of a report within the system that we would get out and just use as a kind of sanity check, if you like. If we wanted to accept this budget and say, yep, we're happy with this forecast that we've created, and now let's push that out to some of our exec team, for example, we can create some quite nice and some more attractive looking reports through the system's PDF writer. So within the system, we've got a number of different ways we can report. One of them would be directly into Excel. One of them will be using the browser that we've just been looking at here, and another one will be via this PDF writer that we're looking at just now. So we've got the ability to be able to choose exactly how we see these kind of reports. I can tweak everything that we're looking at right here. This is entirely customizable, your own logos, you can have the font aligned to different side of the page, you could choose to have headers or not, different colors in the grids, whatever your corporate standard was, we could adhere to here. And the nice thing about these HTML reports is that you can actually drill on these as well. And you'll see that the constituent graphs here actually change as I drill on the different report here. Within the report as well, I can actually choose to change my department there if I wanted to, and I can drill into the income statement along the left-hand side here in the rows. Once I was happy with my report, I could click the PDF button, and that would open the same report in PDF format, which would allow me to save that off and send that outside of the user base of the system. So some quite nice and easy functionality there around reporting and creating what we like to call those pixel-perfect reports with respect to the fact that you can design them and tweak them in any way that you see fit for your own organization. Now, one of the other things I wanted to show was just around the ability to plan for workforce and headcount here as well. So one of the nice things that we can do within the system is we can account for the actual employees within your organization. So we have a number of clients who at the moment are using a third-party or indeed an Oracle Cloud HR system, and we can pull in your employee data from that on a per department level. In this case, we're looking at the department for Massachusetts here, and I've got a number of different employees, and I can see their salary rate, the number of hours they work per week, etc., and any of the pertinent data that we've chosen for this organization. Again, entirely configurable to your own organization. You might have a more elaborate grade structure than that. You might have different employee types, etc. If I wanted to plan for a leave of absence, for example, for Deborah, I can go and do that just by clicking on the Change Employee Status, just via a right-click menu there. And what that's going to do is it's going to say, what do I want Deborah to do? I want her to take a leave of absence in the month of June there, and she's going to take a leave of absence for 2 months. So I can just go and fill the nice easy wizard in here, and I could add some commentary again if we wanted to hold a comment against this action, and then I just click on the Change Employee Status at the bottom there. And what that's going to do is it's going to go away and recalculate for Deborah. I'll just reduce down the size of this here. It's going to recalculate for Deborah for the months of June and July, which is when I said she'd be taking a leave of absence. And you'll see that we have some business logic set up that says a leave of absence means we don't pay salary, but maybe we still cover the healthcare costs. So this will have rolled up, and we can see a year total picture and the total cost of employing Deborah, including all the required social security, taxes, healthcare costs, and salary, etc. And that would have fed all the way through to my my P&L just by me running that process there, me changing that status. So quite good at being able to plan for named individuals within the department and see and make that connection between the information that HR might hold around people taking a leave of absence and the actual financial implication of that. To take that a step further, what I can also do is I can plan for new hires who might not actually be in the business yet. So I've got a number of hiring requisitions that we can see in this table here on the top, and I can do that on a per job type basis. So again, I might want to hire a replacement for Deborah here, and I can just right click and go to adding a hiring requisition, and again I can add that on a per salary or a per hourly basis, and I can come in here. And again, using a nice user-friendly wizard here, I can choose how many requisitions do I want to make, what's their FTE equivalent, what month do we want them to start in. I could say June to take the sack up from Deborah, what's their health plan going to be, and I could choose any of the logic that I had in here. So once I was happy with that, I could simply click Add, and that would add in a new line here as hiring requisition 2 for my sales admin. So again, if I remove that, you'll see that we've got our hiring requisition in. All the salary rates are driven here by the fact that I've got a job role and then I've got a grade, and we're looking at that on a per department basis, in this case Massachusetts. So I can store all that information in the background there as a driver in order to be able to report that and generate that information out. I just want to show very quickly the Excel interface as well. So any of the reports and any of the views and the data entry that we've seen just now today is actually accessible via Excel through an add-in called Oracle SmartView. So all I need to do here is just log in, and if I had single sign-on set up, that would have logged in automatically for me, and I'm able to connect again to my Hyperion, my planning and budgeting application. And from within here I could access all those same task lists that I alluded to at the very beginning. And I could open up my operating forecast task list here, for example, and I could go away and have a look at my head count and salary forecast that we were just taking a look at a couple of minutes ago. So within the confines of Excel, we still have some of the functionalities, such as being able to expand and retract within the hierarchies, as you can see here. And also this is a two-way street in so much as I can actually enter data into here as well. So I could just type over here in Excel, and I can click on the Submit Data button up here. So if you've got people in your FP&A department who are very accustomed to using Excel, and I'm sure you all do, then they needn't leave Excel in order to be able to do their planning. The nice thing about this as well is that if we return to the very first form that we saw here today, when I'm making my changes in here, I can also add all the same commentary that we were able to do from the web front end. I can add commentary in here, and that commentary will be visible for anyone that's logging in through the web front as well. So it's exactly the same database behind the scenes, and there's no concept of duality here. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of the Excel add-in. Of course, there's a lot more to it than what I've just shown there. The final thing I wanted to finish on is just to show the iPad and the Android interface that we've got here. So all of Oracle's cloud technologies operate within this Fusion simplified interface now as well. So if you access your planning and budgeting app from your iPad or from your Android device, you would get a view very similar to this. And within here we have all the same functionality. So this is the third way now we're seeing this. So we can go in here, we can see all our task lists that we've just been looking at today, and we're able to update any of our plans. We can take a look at that form we were just looking at where we had Deborah being planned out there, and we've got all the same actions available to us with respect to being able to change the data here. So if I wanted to update the data, I can just type over that, and I'd be able to do that from an iPad there. One of the nice things about using the iPad view, or the simplified interface as it's properly called, is the ability to look at some quite nice dashboards that you can just create out the box on the fly here. So if we take a look at one here in this application, if I click on the dashboards link there, I've got access to a number of ones that I've created a little bit earlier. So we could take a look at some KPIs, for example, and I can see I've got some activity ratios here and some return on equity, plan versus target, etc., etc. So that was a very quick look across PBCS, and hopefully that gave you a flavor for the user interface and some of the bits and pieces that you can do within the application. We've looked today at a very simple organization that was selling just individual line items and some services off the back of that. But we've actually got a number of quite interesting references that we'd be more than happy to talk to you about. Just like to thank you for your time. I'll thank Kacey once more for the introduction, and we look forward to being in touch and perhaps showing you a little bit more of what the solution can do.